What's going on, gang? Welcome back to the channel. My name's CJ, and in today's video, we're back at it looking at some more NBA player props for tonight's board over on PrizePicks. We've got one NBA game that's going to kind of be the norm going forward, just one NBA game per night, as we're down to the final four teams. The best of the East and the best of the West are taking each other on, and eventually we'll get down to the best from the East and the best from the West facing each other, obviously in the NBA Finals. So get used to us just talking about one NBA game because that's just going to be the way things are. Yesterday's video was pretty bad, I'll admit. We only had one pick hit, and it was Devin Booker under his three-point prop. The other props were just absolutely crazy. I mean, who was it? Michael Bridges. He was pretty much doing nothing. It was all Cameron Payne getting to the bucket, carving up the Los Angeles Clippers last night. He had a fantastic game. And it was just a very weird night, in my opinion. Devin Booker ended up getting his nose all busted up. It was kind of crazy. So last night kind of stunk. We're going to kind of keep that in the past where it belongs. It also stunk if you were an Orlando Magic fan. We had some of the best odds, the best percentages to get the number one pick. We did not get the number one pick. In fact, the worst possible scenario happened with our odds, our percentages, and that was us landing the 5th overall pick, which, you know, this draft's pretty top loaded. I mean, there's some good picks, even in the, around the number 5 pick. So I'm not too worried about it, not too mad about it, especially since we did get that pick from the Chicago Bulls in the Nikola Vucevic trade. So we got the number 5 and the number 8 pick. But anyway, yesterday overall, big disappointment. But today, hopefully, with this game one between the Atlanta Hawks and the Milwaukee Bucks, things will get better. Now, if this is your first time on the channel, definitely hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications for me, make sure that you're all locked in, because once this video goes live, these picks can change. The PrizePicks lines makers, lines movers, whatever you'd like to call them, they do shift things around throughout the day. So some of the projections and stuff that you see in today's video could potentially change throughout the evening. So if you don't play on PrizePicks, definitely sign up today. It's a great time to join. 100% instant deposit match on anything from $20 up to $100. So if you put in 20 bucks, they'll double your money for you instantly. Doesn't cost you anything extra. You'll have $40 to play with. If you want to put in 100, they'll match that too, and you'll have $200 to play with. All you have to do is sign up. I'll leave a link down in the description below. Use promo code Curry, and that's it. Let's get into it, guys. So today we've got 3 points props, 1 assist prop, and 1 rebound prop. And the theme from today's video, being that this is game 1 of a new series, is we're going to be looking back a little bit, looking at previous matchups throughout the regular season between these two teams, trying to formulate an idea of which way these props can go based on projections, based on previous game logs, and things like that. So let's go ahead and get into it. The first guy I want to talk about is Khris Middleton and his 24.5 points. 24.5 points just seems a little bit too high. So I think I'm looking to take the under here on Khris Middleton at 24.5 points. So let's start things off as we normally do by looking at Numberfire. Now, Numberfire has him at exactly 24.5 points, but I looked at a couple of other sites and I kind of averaged out where his points projections were going to land tonight, and I ended up with a number of about 23.9 points tonight, which puts him slightly under 24 points and definitely under 24.5. So the under is definitely the way that I'm looking to lean here on this prop for Khris Middleton. So we'll start things off by looking at his player card over on NBA.com. You can see his scoring average for the season, 20.4 points per game, which is quite a bit lower than 24.5. If we go down and we look at his last 5 games throughout the playoffs here, going back to June 10th, looking at his scoring logs, you can see he drops 35 points, then falls off going down to 19, coming back with 25, 38, and 23. So based on tonight's point prop of 24.5, he's covered 1, 2, 3 times out of his last 5 games. Now, those were all against Brooklyn, obviously. That was the series that just wrapped up. What a great series it was, by the way. But we have to look at how Khris Middleton has done, let's say, versus the Atlanta Hawks this season. So I've already got that pulled up. As you can see, I have looked at the splits here, 2021 season, regular season per game. And I've clicked advanced filters. I've chosen the Atlanta Hawks because obviously that's their opponent. Now that we have all that information in, you can see that he played in 3 games versus the Atlanta Hawks throughout this regular season, averaged a little over 33 minutes per game. Now this is the one that stood out to me and why I'm also in agreement that the under's the way to go. In those 3 games, those 3 matchups versus Atlanta, 17.3 points per game, putting him well under both his season averages and his projected point total of 24.5 points. So 17.3 points is not very encouraging. So I would not be looking to take the over here on Chris Middleton. Now I do have some fan short insights for Chris Middleton and this points prop at 24.5 points when the Milwaukee Bucks are coming off of a win, which they are. Obviously, they closed out the Brooklyn Nets in Game 7. The last 12 scenarios, he is 1 for 12 in covering his 24.5 point prop. That's good for just an 8% cover percentage, averaging 20.9 points per game in that scenario. Now, versus top 10 defenses, the last 15 times he's faced a top 10 defense, he has went 2 for 15 in covering tonight's point prop of 24.5. That's good for just 13%. Pretty miserable there. 18.7 points per game. Now, as I mentioned, against the Atlanta Hawks, in his last 6 games against the Hawks, he is actually 0 for 6 in covering 24.5 points. So obviously, he seems to struggle here against the Atlanta Hawks. He's averaging 18.7 points per game in the last 6 versus Atlanta. And finally, to wrap things up, in his last 15 games, 4 for 15, covering this 24.5 point prop, 27% cover percentage, averaging 22.2 points per game in that time span. So you can see, guys, he has really struggled against the Hawks. He has struggled in some of these other scenarios to cover 24.5 points. Again, kind of lending itself to the under on Chris Middleton. So let me refresh this page here because we still have some props up from last night. We'll click the points category. It shoots us up to where we need to be. And at 24.5 points across the industry today, you could see that he is a minus 113 under and over on this first book here. So he's even, not really seeing any action one way or the other. Then we got him as a minus 114 under. That is a good sign for us because we are looking to take the under. And last but not least, a minus 118 to go under. So these aren't super strong odds favoring the under for Chris Middleton, but nonetheless, it is kind of solidifying the lean toward the under on Chris Middleton. So I believe that is the way that I'm looking to go today, sticking with the under on Chris Middleton and these 24.5 points. All right, so with that one out of the way, let's flip things over to the Atlanta Hawks side of things. John Collins, 15.5 points. I'm liking the over based on some of the preliminary research that I did before shooting today's video. So let's go ahead and jump into it. We'll head back over to NumberFire. We'll close out these tabs here. We don't need those anymore. And let's go find John Collins. Now he's projected for 15.4 points on NumberFire tonight. Now I went ahead and did some extra research and did a little averaging of his points projection, and I've got him at 16.6 projected points across a few different sites. So I kind of averaged all those sites together, and that's what I landed on. So I'm looking to take the over on John Collins. Now let's go look at his regular season numbers. 17.6 points per game throughout the regular season. Pretty encouraging in terms of taking the over. I think the over is still on the table so far. Now we're going to go look at his game logs over his last 5 here. And you can see if we go back to June 11th, he covers with 23 points, comes up short here with 14, bounces back, covers with 19, and then he falls short in his last 2 games against the Sixers. But I won't be discouraged by his last 5 game logs because his season-long averages versus the Milwaukee Bucks are very encouraging. So let's go ahead and take a look at those. Again, got the 2021 season pulled up. We've got the regular season pulled up. I clicked advanced filters, changed it to opponent Milwaukee Bucks. You guys can go and do all this stuff for free, by the way. This is totally free on NBA.com. You can see that he faced the Milwaukee Bucks twice this regular season, playing over 34 minutes, and he averaged 24 points per game. So that is a very strong point per game average versus the Milwaukee Bucks in those 2 previous matchups, making me feel a little more confident about taking the over on 15.5 points tonight. All right, so with that out of the way, we are going to flip things over to RotoWire here and look for John Collins. We got him at 15.5 points across the industry today. Now, even action here, not really getting an over or an under. We got him a slight over here at -112 for the over, and then finally a -125 for the under. So these two sites kind of cancel each other out. The first site, the action was even, not really seeing an edge one way or the other for John Collins. But guys, overall, based on the projections from various sites, based on the regular season matchups against the Milwaukee Bucks, I think I'm liking the over here on John Collins and this 15.5 point prop. So I'm going to stick with it, and hopefully that ends up working out for us. And finally, the last point prop I want to talk about is Brook Lopez, who's at 13.5 points. And he's had pretty good success throughout the regular season against this Atlanta Hawks team, covering this points prop of 13.5. So I'm looking to take the over on Brolo in this situation. So we're going to head back to Number Fire. We'll close out those John Collins tabs. We don't need him anymore. And you can see he is at 14.5 projected points tonight. Now, I did go and do like I did for the previous two players and average out those points props on various different sites, and it actually ends up being 14.5. So it's exactly what Number Fire has him as, which is a good sign for us because that's a whole point over where he's projected today at 13.5. So the lean should definitely be on the over in this case based on what we know so far. Now, if we go and we look at the regular season averages for Brook Lopez and his points per game, 12.3 points per game puts him under 13.5. But again, fear not, because once I show you how well he's done against Atlanta this season, I think you'll start feeling a little bit better about this. But let's go look at his last 5 games. They were all against Brooklyn, obviously, as that series just wrapped up. And we look at his scoring logs here, 3 points, 6 points. Obviously, those are unders. Comes back with a good game here, 15 points. Falls short with 8, and then plays 46 whopping minutes for 19 points. So he's got 2 out of his last 5 where he's covered 13.5 points. But I'm not going to let that discourage me, because we're going to go look at how well he did against Atlanta throughout this regular season. So we've already got Atlanta selected as the opponent. Now, we've got a 3-game sample size here to look at, 28.5 minutes per game. I do expect him to probably play a little bit more minutes than that. In fact, let's go back over here to Number Fire. They've actually got him projected to play 34.18 minutes. So that's even more minutes than he played in the 3 regular season matchups against the Atlanta Hawks that we talked about earlier. So 28.5 minutes per game, that should tick up to over 30 minutes tonight. But you can see he averaged 14 points per game in those 3 previous matchups against the Hawks. So that is an encouraging sign that he can clear this 13.5 and cover it without any issues. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. Now, I don't have any FanSure insights for Brook Lopez, so we're going to move over to RotoWire and cap things off here. We're going down and finding Brook Lopez here amongst the crowd, the sea of names. You can see at 13.5 points on this first book, we have him as a -113. He's even Steven there, not really seeing any juice one way or the other. -110, not seeing any action one way or the other there, even again. But this last book, we have him as a -120 to go over 13.5 points. So a slight lean for the over on the 13.5 point prop there. So all in all, guys, I think everything leads me to want to stick with my guns here, take the over on Brook Lopez, and hope that he can definitely cover this 13.5 point prop. All right, so with those point props out of the way, I've got one assist prop that kind of stood out to me. A guy who received much praise, much adulation from his teammates recently, and that is Kevin Huerter at 2.5 assists. At 2.5 assists, I'm looking to take the over here, and he has been getting it done in terms of clearing this 2.5 assist prop, both in the regular season matchups against the Milwaukee Bucks and in some of the recent games against the Brooklyn Nets in that series. So close out these tabs. We'll head back over to Number Fire. Let's click the assist tab here, and we'll go look for Kevin Huerter. He's right here at 3.6 assists. So I've averaged out those other sites, and I ended up landing on 3.5 assists, a slight tick down from where Number Fire has him, but nonetheless, 3.6. Either way, it's still more than 2.5 assists, right? So as long as he dishes out 3 assists or more, we're in good shape. So let's move things over to Kevin Huerter's player page here on NBA.com. You can see that for the season, 3.5 assists per game. So that is an encouraging sign. We'll scroll on down here. We'll look at his last 5 games in his game log. The assist category here, just 1 assist against Philly back on June 11th, 2 assists, 1 assist, but things have kind of picked up here for him in the last 2 games. He plays 44 minutes, 40 minutes. I don't know if he'll play that many minutes tonight, but you can see he covers 2.5 assists in his last 2 games with 4 and 3. So hopefully that's a sign of things to come, and he's starting to kind of get closer to where those season averages are of 3.5 assists. So then we're going to go look at how well he's done against Milwaukee throughout the regular season here. I've already got that pulled up to save a little time. You can see that he faced Milwaukee in 3 games this season, played over 32.4 minutes per game, and in those games averaged 3 assists per game, which is all we need from him. We don't need him to be like Trae Young and drop 9, 10, 11 assists. We just need 3. So that is a good sign that he can definitely get that done. So feeling good about it so far here for Kevin Huerter. One other thing that I wanted to bring up for Kevin Huerter is that in his last 6 meetings with the Milwaukee Bucks, he's covered in 5 out of 6 of those meetings. That's good for an 83% cover rate according to FanSure, and he's averaged 3.7 assists per game in those 6 previous matchups. So again, another encouraging sign for the over there on Kevin Huerter. So we're going to wrap this up on Kevin Huerter here. We're going to go find him on RotoWire and compare the different sports books. We got him at 2.5 across all 3 books. First one here, no action one way or the other. Dead even at -113. This one here, a slight edge to the over, -112. And finally, a -125 to go over on BetMGM. So out of those 3 books, we got 2 books that are suggesting we should be thinking about going over on Kevin Huerter and these 2.5 assists. And I tend to agree. I think that this is a good place to target a guy who has kind of been discounted versus like where his season averages are at just 2.5 assists. I think he could definitely get it done. So that's going to do it for Kevin Huerter, and we're going to wrap this video up by talking about one rebound prop that I think I'm going to go under on, and that's Giannis Antetokounmpo at 13.5 boards. Once I start showing you some of these numbers, you'll kind of see where I'm coming from here, and maybe you'll land on this pick as well. So 13.5 boards. Let's go back to Number Fire, get an idea of where they have him projected tonight. Now, he can be a monster on the glass, but so can Clint Capella and some of these other guys for the Atlanta Hawks like John Collins. So they've got Giannis Antetokounmpo projected at 14.3 rebounds. Now, I will say that I averaged out a few different sites that offer projections for single stats, and I ended up landing on 13.2 rebounds for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Obviously, a big contrast versus what you're seeing here on Number Fire. So just wanted to throw that out there. Now, we're going back to the regular season numbers here for a minute. Looking at Giannis's rebounds, you can see he's 11 rebounds per game, which puts him quite a bit under this 13.5 rebound prop tonight. So let's go and look at his last 5 games, see how well he's been rebounding the basketball. Well, his numbers are definitely up: 14, 12, 12, 17, and 13. So he's covered this 13.5 rebound prop just 2 times out of his last 5 games. I mean, he's got to pull down 14 or more rebounds to get this done tonight, and that is a tall task, especially against this Hawks team. And you'll see how well he's done, or maybe how well he didn't do against the Hawks throughout the regular season right now. So we've got all that stuff programmed in there. You could see that in 3 regular season matchups against this Hawks team. Now, he only played 32 minutes, something to definitely point out and to take into consideration. His minutes will definitely be up tonight, but he'll average just 11 rebounds per game in those 32 minutes against the Hawks. So maybe his minutes tick up. Let's go look at his minutes projection real quick. Projected for 41 minutes. So yeah, he's going to be playing more minutes than just the 32. Almost 10 more minutes is what they have him projected for. So that's something to definitely keep in mind. You know, maybe he gets 12, maybe he gets 13 rebounds, but does he get 14? I don't know. This is a tough one for sure. This is definitely not an easy prop. A couple of insights that I was able to find through FanSure when the Milwaukee Bucks are coming off of a win, which is what they just did against the Brooklyn Nets. In the last 8 game spans, he has covered just 1 time, has Giannis, in those last 8 wins, coming off of a win. And that's good for just a 12% cover percentage, 12.4 rebounds per game during that time span. And also in his last 4 games, he's only covered 1 time, good for 25%, but he is averaging 13.5 rebounds, which just happens to be where he is projected for today on PrizePicks. So let's go ahead and close things out here. We're going to go to the rebound category on RotoWire. Let's find Giannis Antetokounmpo. We got him at 13.5 boards across the industry, and these are some of the strongest odds out of any of the props that we've discussed in today's video. Minus 134 to go under, minus 130 to go under, and a strong minus 139 to go under. So I think I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to go with the under on Giannis Antetokounmpo. Yeah, his minutes will be up. Maybe he pulls down a couple of extra rebounds versus where he kind of averaged that 11 rebound per game average versus the Atlanta Hawks. But 14 rebounds or more is going to be tough against the likes of Collins and Capella tonight. So I'm going to take the under on Giannis. Fingers crossed. Let's hope it works out. What do you guys think? Which props from today's video really stood out to you? Maybe there's some that maybe I didn't get a chance to talk about that you're really in love with. Leave them down in the comments section below. I'd love to hear your feedback. I know the people who tune into these videos would love to hear your feedback. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on. Like this video if it brought you any value. My name's CJ. We'll catch you in the next one, guys. Peace out.